Um, Welcome to you all again for the second of our two lectures for today's Israel 75 Philatelic Academy. And this time, our second speaker is Zvi Ittelson, who's going to speak to us on the overprints of the British civil administration in Palestine between 1920 and 1922. Now, before I hand over to Zvi, just the usual customary announcements. If you could all please mute yourselves and so that we don't have any noise in the background. And again, if you have questions and comments, as you did for the first lecture, if you could post those into the group chat. And again, before we pass on, I'd just like to again acknowledge the support that we've had from our three sponsors. Dieter Mikkelsen from Heinrich Köhler, who's been a generous supporter of events in Israel on a number of occasions. And once again, we're grateful to Dieter and to his colleagues at Heinrich Köhler for their support. And again, we've had support from Ed Rosen of House of Zion. And again, you can read on the screen some details of his upcoming events for those of you who have an interest in what he will be doing in the next few weeks. And then our third sponsor is Arthur Morowitz of Champion Stamp Company. And they are retail dealers. They are actually the only walk-in stamp store left now in Manhattan, New York. And not only are they dealers in stamps and covers, but also in banknotes. So for those of you who share an interest in collecting banknotes, which is a growing area like that of picture postcards, certainly you should reach out to them for details. So at that point, I'd like to stop sharing my screen, and I'd like to pass everything over to Zvi Ittelson for him to make his presentation on the overprints of the British civil administration. So Zvi, if you'd like to start sharing your screen, I will stop sharing mine, and the audience is yours.
Thank you very much.
Well, hang on. Oh boy. Okay.
Okay, can I speak now? Everybody's listening? Well, first of all, I would like to thank Yoram for helping me with all these presentations, because since I'm very much into stamps, I'm not very much into computers, and he did all the work. So if you see anything wrong with the presentation, it's all his fault. So that's the first point, the most important part. I don't have as much experience as the previous lecturer. I only collect these stamps for the last 20 to 25 years. And I kind of fell in love with this subject. It has nothing to do with postal history. This is about the old classic way to collect stamps. It's all about the stamp itself. It has some postal history issues like first stamp, first date, and some envelopes with varieties that can be of interest, but it's mostly about the stamp itself, the way they used to collect like 50 years ago. And it suits my character because I live way in the past. Well, it all started, let's start. It all started Ed Coach's name?
Ed Croft.
Ed Croft finished his first lecture with the blues, the lithographed issue of the British administration. And once the blues, the blues were issued when the Egyptian expedition forces were entering Israel. They were used in 1918. And then in July 1918, they issued a new set of stamps, which is very important for this collection, and it's called a typograph stamps. It was issued in the middle of July. It consists of 11 values. It has the 1 mil, 2 mil, 3 mil, 4 mil, 5 mil, 1, 2, 5, 9, 10, and 20 piastres. And this is very vital to my collection. The typograph, which has no overprints whatsoever, are the basic to this collection. And you have to know the typograph very well and I will explain you later what is the importance of these typographies. They were used in not only in Palestine. We use in Palestine, we use in Egypt, in Transjordan, in Syria, in Lebanon, in Cilicia, which is Turkey basically. And they were used between 1918 and 1920. Now, they are very important to this lecture because they are the base where the overprints of the British Mandate was printed on. Now, I have a few pens of these stamps. The stamps were issued in 2 pens, upper pen and lower pen. Each pen was consisted of 120 stamps, 12 stamps on the upper, on the row, and on each column had 10 stamps. So the upper pen is called the upper pen, the lower pen, each has 120 stamps, and this is how all the typograph stamps were used. With all these 240 stamps. Now, it is very important to understand the typograph itself, the basic on which where all these overprints were used to print on. I don't know who are the people who did this, but somewhere, I think in the 30s or 40s, people were actually sitting on this typograph. We are talking about 11 values. Each value has 240 stamps. They were sitting on each and every stamps without any computers or no major technology. And they indicated on each and every stamp a special feature that will help us to determine which position the stamp comes from. And this stamp collection is all about, it's like a puzzle. It's very important to us to understand from which position the stamp comes. So in this, I took part of the book, and it shows one typograph page, and each you can see on each position, almost each position, they found something special that makes it different than any other position. And this stamp that is here on down here, the 4 mm stamps, you have this point here. You see this point? And this point exists in 2 positions, in position 111 and position 207. And we call this point like Arabic 40, because the Arabic 4 turned into, with this dot, which is 0, became into 40. Now, most typograph special printing is not significant. It only helps us to determine from which position the stamp is being taken. There are like 31 important positions that we have their names, and you will see, you will understand later what it can be used. Okay, this is the basic. The basic was the typograph stamp that we used from July 16, 1990, and this is way before our story begins. Okay, so the story begins here in June the 30th, because on July the 1st, the British appointed a new guy named Herbert Samuel as the civil administrator for Israel. They took over the British Egyptian Inquisition forces, the military regime, and started all this civil regime. And this is a very interesting paper in which the last military man made him sign that he received one Palestine complete, and he signed this paper. And this paper really exists. They were so into formalities that he had to sign, I received one Palestine. And this is actually where my collection starts, because he started the civil administration on July the 1st, 1920, and one of his first decisions was to make overprints on these typograph stamps in 3 languages, Arabic and English and Hebrew. I wanted to give you first an overall look. Basically, if at the end of my lecture, you will be experts in Palestine stamp and forget all your other collections and go into Palestine, I'll be very happy. But I believe this wouldn't happen. What I really wanted to get is the basic idea of what this collection is consist of. Because usually when people see these terms, they say, oh, they have 3 letters, 3 languages. There are so many options. It's very complicated. Let's go to the next issue. But this is not very complicated. Once you understand the method, there's a certain method to understand these terms. And once you understand the method, once you understand the way things were created, you will even start collecting these terms. Now, these terms were printed first of all in Jerusalem, in a Greek convent in Jerusalem. They were printed in 3 main issues, and believe it or not, they call it Jerusalem 1, 2, 3 to determine the name of these issues. After they saw the mess of the print in Jerusalem, the British made a terrible decision and decided to transfer all the printing to London. And the people in London were very, very accurate, did a very good job and a very bad job for collecting. So unfortunately, it was done in London. The London has 2 issues, and believe it or not, the names are London 1 and 2. So basically, the whole thing is you have 3 printing in Jerusalem, we call it Jerusalem 1, 2, 3, and 2 printings in London, London 1 and London 2. The whole thing, the whole collection starts at September 1st, 1920, and the last issue of the last London 2 stamp is somewhere in 22. So we're talking about a period of less than 2 years. And the last more than 20 years I've dedicated to study these overprints. And I must admit that even after more than 20 years, sometimes I see something and say, I didn't know it. It is amazing. It's something, it's not about stamp collection. It's more about a puzzle that you have to understand which stamps come from which position. It's like a game. So forget all you know about stamp collecting and enjoy this, what I'm going to show you. So we have, I repeat myself a few times because I want you at the end to understand what the thing is all about. 3 prints in Jerusalem, 2 prints in London, and that's it. Okay, let's go. Jerusalem 1. So they started to print it in Jerusalem. They did it in 3 languages, and this is how they started. They decided, Mr. Herbert Samuel decided to do it in 3 languages. The upper language would be Arabic. It says Palestinian in Arabic. The main, of course, Palestine would be in English, and Palestina, Eretz Israel, Palestina would be in Hebrew. Now, this is very nice. This is the essay, and some of the population, the Arabic-speaking population, was not very happy about this Palestina because has no meaning, Eretz Israel. They wanted Palestina to be the first. They made a big mess. And of course, since when you make a big mess, everybody's will agree not to fight with you. And eventually on the stamps, they had the Palestina . Now, this is an essay because it wasn't used as postulate. It's an essay, we know it's an essay because it's called Palestina. We used to have 8 of these. Eventually, after a few years, I collected, they found 4 more examples from the Farouk collection. We were very happy we had 12 of this. And like 3 or 4 years ago, somebody found a whole sheet, I think it was 168 values, and eventually all these important, very expensive, I would say, stamp would lose their value. But yet, this is the start of it all, okay? So it was written in 3 languages, Palestina. And I have also a specimen of this, few specimens of this issue. I'm not sure about the authenticity of it. I have some kind of certificate. I can't assure you all. It appears in the catalog, but it has also a specimen, overprint, Handley specimen. There. So let's start. It all started in Jerusalem. We're printing the first Jerusalem overprint. The first Jerusalem overprint, we had to write Arabic, we had to write English, and to write Hebrew, 3 languages. And they did it in 24 kinds of overprints. They had the same overprint for type 1, the first type, the second one was the same, third, they have 24 kinds of these overprints, okay? And these 24 kind of overprints in Jerusalem 1 is called setting 1, because the setting 1 consists of 24 types. Okay, I have here an example of the first date envelope, September 1st. The rate, I'm not sure about the normal rate for register should be 1 piastre, 2 piastre should have been something very heavy. Otherwise, I wouldn't understand how from Jerusalem to Jerusalem it costs 2 piastre. But this has a very nice stamp. So we have Jerusalem 1, we have a setting 1 with 24 kinds of handwriting. And at the very same day, they started something called setting 2, 12 other more types of writing. Okay, so we have setting 1 with 24 types, we have setting 2 with 12 types. How do I know it was on the very same day? Because here I have something from the first day, September the 1st, 1920. This is the 1 piastre stamp. It is definitely from the second setting, and it starts on the very same day. So why did they do it for 24 types of writing and other 12 types of writing? Nobody knows. But this is how it was issued. And basically, it was it all started on September the 1st. Okay, so I'll just go on. Now, how did they do this first setting? The first setting would go like this. They had 24 types of writing. Okay, so we have the top row in its sheet. The top row would be type 1, type 2, type 3, type 4, 12 types. And the second row should be type 13, 14, 15, and then 24. The sequence of the types differs. It doesn't stay the same, or it doesn't say 1 to 12, 13 to 24, 1 to 12, 13 to 24. It changes all along the sheet. Now you have to remember something. It is very important to us as the Palestine overprint collectors to know the exact, and I'll tell you afterwards why, to know the exact position of each stamp. It's like a big puzzle. You have to know exactly where the stamp comes from. So if you have a block that consists of a column that has 3 types of 1 to 12, like this, it can be in the upper panel. So you can look in the upper panel and see whether or not you can find it. Okay. Each type appears exactly 10 times in every panel. Okay. So throughout the sheet. So we have 10 times type 1, 10 times type 2, etc., etc. Okay, next one. Okay, this is the types I was talking about. Remember, we have 24 types in the first setting. I don't think it would be wise to show you all 24 types of first setting, but I want you just to understand the idea of what I mean by types. If you want to go very much into it, there are some catalogs where you can see the difference between each and every type. I can tell you after 20 or 25 years of collecting, sometimes I can see a stamp and say right away, this is type so-and-so, and even I can say the position, but sometimes it takes me something. Like type 5 from setting 2 and type 21 from setting 1 are very similar. You have to think very good to determine the types. Many people would ask, how can I determine all the types? Well, you have to practice. But I will give you the 2 methods. First of all, the mathematical method. The mathematical method says, look at the type, like you see this line here, it will tell you that the Hebrew letter Hey is right under the English letter E. So if you want to determine type 4 in the first setting, you have to look at all these letters are under the letter that shows above. Because sometimes the Arabic would move to the right or to the left, the English would move to the right or to the left, or the Hebrew. So the proportion between the position is very vital to know which type it is. It's possible to take I wouldn't know how to say it in English, like to take these types, put them on something at transparent and put it on. But I actually, after collecting for so many years, I don't use any mathematical method. I look at the stamp and I say, just tell me where I was seen it before. Another method that I use is because I have many full sheets of these, I can always compare the overprint to the overprint I have. It's not so wise, but this is the way I work. So let's see. This is type 4. When you see why is it type 4? How can you determine it's type 4 when you look at the stem? First of all, type 4 from setting 1. Setting 1 is the only one that has all these dashes way up in the air. So type 4, where setting 1 has the highest dashes of the all in the world in the air. You look at this type 4, you see the dashes, they're way up, and you say it can't be anything but type 4. And beside these dashes, also this one, the initial Arabic S, like Palestine, the S, this kind of S exists only on type 4 or type 8. So it differs. Type 8, it looks a bit different. So I look at the stamp, I look at the dashes, I see their eye, and I say this is type 4. Another example here is type 10 from setting 1. How do I know it's type 10? I can work mathematically, or I can look at the stamp. What do I see? I see this terrible break in the Arabic L. You look at this terrible break and say, well, this is type 10. But there's also type 10 in the setting. So you go down and you see the dashes. If the dashes are aligned with the Aleph Yud, they're definitely from the second setting. If the dashes are up in the air and this terrible break is in the Arabic L, is from the first setting. The last example I have is type 12. Type 12 is very easy characteristic. But first of all, it has this bulk B. I know people who don't correct Palestine, they always talk about Palestine B. You go to eBay, you see a stamp, it has a bulk on the B, it says, it's a B error. This is not a B error. This is a type 12. How do I know it's type 12? Because this big bulk on the B, I know this, we know this Arabic T is going downhill. You see the Arabic T is aligned, and here it is aligned. And here the Arabic goes down. The Arabic goes down, the B is very strong, and the dashes are up high. The same thing would look on Arabic on type 24, but on type 24, the dashes would never be high, they would be on the same. So you need a lot of experience. You need to work with this material for many, many years, but you can also start with a book. You have Bail catalog, you have Dorfman catalog, you look at the catalog, you look at the stamp, and you start determining. And never say, I cannot do it, you can do it. It's not so complicated. So these are the different types. You have 24 of these types in the first setting. You have 12 kind of these types in the second setting. Altogether, 36 types of writing. Okay? I hope you enjoyed it. Now, there was a problem with the first setting. We said, remember, we had the Jerusalem 1. Jerusalem 1 was printed in 24 types. But once they printed the types, they found a terrible mistake. The first mistake was on the first column on the left. The type 1 stamp had a dot, a stupid dot above the Arabic T. Now, for each of us who doesn't speak Arabic, including myself, it's just a simple dot. For those who speak Arabic, it's terrible because instead of saying Palestine, it says Palestine, and nobody wants to mess with these guys. So we don't like this mistake, and we will take the stamp away. So before they printed it and before they gave it to the public, they took away all the first column. All the first column, which is on the left, was taken away, because we don't want the Arabic Z to appear, okay? This is one problem we had with the first setting. Now, this is another example. I just want to say another thing, that of course, like any good story, when all these examples were taken away, some examples were left for the collectors like me 100 years ago, later. But the thing is that the 1 to 5 million stamps that were sold were not sold to the public freely. You can go to the post office, and you can, if you want to post something, let's say you wanted to post a letter which was 5 mil in Israel, and a postcard which was 4 mil, you could go to the clerk and you say, I want to post a postcard. He would put a stamp on the envelope, on the postcard, and he would take it from you and send it. You couldn't take stamps home. not from the 1 to 5 million, for 3 weeks. And during these 3 weeks, they found the terrible mistake of this, what we call a zero. This example, and afterwards, basically, they let people buy stamps. Like in 3 days afterwards in Jerusalem, all the 5 million stamps disappeared because you can take them home. Like this example here is a very, very rare stamp. It's in 1 million, the zero. It has 3 examples, 2 million example, and one used. And so I wanted to show you this one, and I wanted to show you how it looked on the sheet itself. On the right hand, you can see part of the sheet that still has this zero. So you can see the zero on top, which is type 1, then type 2. Underneath the type 1, after you have 12 types all the way to, on this row, you go under, you got type number 13. Now, type 13 was the fortunate one because since they wanted to take away all the zero from type 1, they had to take also types of 13. They were not sophisticated enough to leave the types without arrow. They would take all the row, all the column, and say, we don't use it anymore. So this example here is very nice because you can see the top one has type 1, 0. This is type 2. This is type 13, which is underneath. This is type 14, and this is also 0. Again, remember, this is the first row was 1 to 12, second row was 13 to 24, and underneath 1 to 12 again. This example here is interesting because this is type 13. This is an unfortunate type that had to be taken away. And this is the only example I know in the world that exists of the 3 million for this example of this type. And they are very rare because all the zero and type 13 are rare because they were taken away, but the milim are very rare. They have a handful of each in the world. Now, this was in the left corner. Remember, I say it again, we're talking about Jerusalem 1. We're talking about the first setting, and we're talking about the left column that was taken away because of the zero. Now, unfortunately, on the 11th row, the type 11 had another problem. And the other problem was that in the type 11, you see this is type 12. We remember it from the first the slide I showed you. This is type 12, and it's the last row, but the row before is type 11. If you see the Hebrew letters, instead of writing Aleph dashes Yud, they wrote Aleph Yud dashes, which is a terrible mistake. Nobody will suffer this. We can't live with this mistake. So they took away the 11th row. Remember, it's 11th Jerusalem 1. They're taking away the first row from the left. They're taking away the 11th row, and everything else can be sold. And underneath this type 11, we have, of course, type 23. It has no major features. Nothing is important with this type. But the only thing with this type is it was under type 11. So they take type 11, they take type 23, and they throw it to the garbage. Besides some examples that were left, this is a very nice block. It has type 11 here, and it has type 23. Down here, you see there's nothing special about type 23. In fact, some collectors who collect varieties would say, we collect type 1, we collect type 11, we don't collect type 13 or 23. It has no interest. But it has the same rarity as the other types. Okay, let's go on. So this is how if you look to the right, I tried to show you how the whole sheet would look without these 2 columns. Okay, this is the whole sheet. There was a gutter here, something that separates between the sheets, and all the left sheet was gone. Sorry, and all the 11th row was gone. No more. This is I enlarge it, and you have all the different types. The types 2 to 10, then type 12. Then you have type 14 to type 22, and then you have type 24, and the sequence we were talking about. And this is the Holy Grail. Okay. Now, this is, I think it's the only one I know. This is the only pen I know that was left alive with all the lines that were supposed to be taken away still on it. It's a 2 mil pen. It has, if I remember right, it has six transpose arrow and 6 Z arrow and 4 type 13, and only 3, unfortunately, type 23, because this part of the sheet, unfortunately, has vanished. But this is a very nice item, and it's unique. You can't find anything like it. And I achieved it really by hazard. It has also, I'll show you later, it has another variety that all the overprint went up, but I'll show you this later. Okay, so I'll repeat myself again. We have the first printing in the Greek Orthodox convent. They were printing Jerusalem 1, and why is it called Jerusalem 1? I'll show you again in this slide, but they had a problem with the left row, they had a problem with the 11th row, they took them away, and we have a transpose there on the 11th row, we have the Z arrow on the left. So another, first of all, there are a few examples beside these arrows that are very, very rare and very important. You have some other varieties in this setting 1 of Jerusalem 1, which are very important. The Holy Grail of, as far as I'm concerned, the Holy Grail of the Palestine collection is Jerusalem 1 B arrow. First, we call it the first B. First B because it is the B that's found on Jerusalem 1 setting 1 items. The first B looks like a pretzel, you see. This is the first B. It exists only on five values, the 2, 5, 10, 2, 5, 9, 10, and 20 piastre. It doesn't exist on the milim because the milim are extremely rare. And this existed on the position 133 on in the panel, in the pen, and this is type 13. So not only is it type 13, it's a type 13 with a B arrow. And I think the B arrow of the 10 piastre has, I think, four examples in the world. And this is the rarest of them all. The 5 piastre, we have only 2 examples, and that's it. There are only 2 complete sets of this arrow that can exist, but the thing is, you have to understand, we have a big sheet. We have these withdrawn types 1 and 11. We have this unfortunate type 13 and 23. And beside these types, we have key positions that are very much desirable for the collector. And the best of them is the B arrow. Okay? I got you another, to confuse you all, I will want to show you another important position, which is position 98. It's not as important as position 133 because it's not a withdrawn type. It's a type that used to exist, but it's one of 240. It's called an orphan B. I know it's very confusing, but later I will show you in Palestine collection, you have 2 Bs in the first setting and 2 Bs in the second setting, and that's it. So this is the second B. In the first setting, it's called an orphan B. Orphan because the B is kind of isolated from the N. It looks right from right. And this example, like type 13, which is the withdrawn type, and the orphan. Okay. And another prominent type variety of this first setting is Palestine 13. It's called 13 because you have it with you see instead of B, it's right like 1 and 3. It's Palestine 13. I brought 2 examples, one of the 9 piastre, one of the 5 piastre. Here is a very nice block of the 5 piastre. This is extremely nice because not only it has Palestine 13, it has the first B arrow as well. So it's a combination of the first B and the Palestine 13. I want to show you, I'll go backwards a bit to the sheet. This is the sheet, okay? This is the first setting. It has 24 overprint. This is the lower sheet. The Palestine 13 is here where the cursor is, okay? Position 98 is here. Palestine 135 is here. These are main positions, and there are many others. I will not indicate them, but as a collector, you want to know that you want to find this position, and you want to make sure they're in the right place in the pen. Okay? So this is the first setting, that these 24 types and special positions that they have. And like all the good thing, I'm still talking about the first setting of the first Jerusalem overprint. Besides having a sheet, and besides having the withdrawn type, and besides having all these type 13 and type 23, and besides having all these special varieties like type 133 the beer, or type 98 the orphan bee, type 135 the 13, etc., etc. The writing would change. It used to be in Arabic on the top, English in the middle, and Arabic and Hebrew down. But since we're talking about printing in Israel in 1920, so it would shift. It would shift in many ways. It would shift upwards, it would shift downwards, it would shift sideways. Okay, so it can go. You can collect, beside collecting the varieties, you can collect a shift of the overprint. I have brought you two examples. One is very nice. It has Hebrew on top instead of having like it should be upward. It went downward. You have Hebrew on top, and you have the Hebrew on the side of the sheet. Here you have an example called Hebrew divided. You can see only two. It is type 10. You see the break in the L. You see Arabic. You see the English writing, and it has a dividing Hebrew. Okay, this is the way the overprint shifted. The overprint also would shift to the right or to the left. And for us, the collectors, overprint that shifted to the right or to the left is way less important than the one who shifted to the upwards or downwards. But this example is very nice because the sheet was shifted to the left. This is the famous type 11, the transpose that were taken away, and you can see it here. It was shifted to the left, and you can see it on type 20, type 10. It's a type 10. Remember this break. This is type 10, and this is the transposed arrow. You can see it. It's on the wrong stamp. It's lovely. This is something marvelous. You can see the writing was shifted. This is type 10, 11, and 12. You can see here this transposed arrow. This is the one they took away. But the transposed arrow doesn't appear on the type 11. It appears on type 23. It went down. So basically, you have the two types together on one stamp. Marvelous. Here is another example with an orphan bee, where the writing went up and down. The Hebrew is divided. It's so divided that you have only two languages. You have the Arabic and you have the Hebrew letter. And this is by far my most beloved stamp. This is the stamp I love the most, maybe because I just purchased it like 20, 25 years ago, one of my first stamps ever. This is a transposed arrow. It's type 11, and it has English on top. It has the combination of two varieties, the transposed arrow and the English on top arrow. Marvelous. So we talked about Jerusalem 1. We talked about these 24 types. We talked about the two columns that disappeared. They have type 11, type 13. I'm repeating myself constantly because I want you at the end of my lecture to have some kind of idea what this collecting is all about. Now, actually, the Jerusalem 1, setting 1 is nice, but the setting 2 is basically where the fun starts. Because if you like puzzles, you go to setting 2. Setting 2 has only 12 types. It doesn't have 24 types like the first type. It has only 12. 12 types. You can look at the catalog. Not all of them are very easy to identify, but after you work like 20, 25 years, you will be able to identify them all. So the first stamp, definitely, I can assure you that the first stamp that they issued with the second setting would be the 1 piastra stamp. I know it because I have this first day cancel on it, and I think that the other ones, other values were printed a few days later. I'm not sure, I can't prove it, but I never found any other stamp, any other value that was printed on September the 1st. But this is only for the records. Now, this setting has 12 types, okay? 12 ways they write this Arabic, English, Hebrew letter. And they put them in good order. Unlike the first one that was 1 to 13, 1 to 12, 13 to 24, and then they changed the sequence. Here, there's no problem. It's very easy. 1 to 12, and then again 1 to 12, and then again 1 to 12. Very simple. If you see this table on the right, it has numbers on it. The numbers are saying that each number is a variety. Like type 10, here number 10 has a broken N. Type 12 has a broken L. Okay, type 22, the P is open. Each and every one of them has a character that we say this is a special stamp on the sheet, and we will make it. When we think it's different, we will collect these varieties. It's all about varieties. By far the most important variety of all these second setting is the B variety. And this is a very simple stamp. It's not, it has no value. It's very low value. It's a B variety of the 1 piastre stamp. Now remember, we have 11 values. This way the sheet looked like on only one value, the 1 piastre stamp. The 1 piastre stamp was the basic stamp for the second setting. They made it this way, and this position, the B arrow, was here in position 224. Now, this, if you want to collect the Palestine Jews Lemon stamps, and you want to collect the second setting, this stamp, the 1 piastre, will be used for you to determine any other position in the other sheets that we use. What do I refer to? Like if you have here number 10, and I'm calling this sheet the sheet for alpha, the sheet for 1 piastre alpha. So this is called alpha 10. Alpha 10 is the variety that was used on a 1 piastre stamp that sits on this position. Okay, so the 1 piastre stamp was used with this kind of arrangement. Then we go to a second kind of arrangement that we call beta. The beta arrangement was used for all values, for 1 to 5 milliamps and 1 piastre to 20 piastre. All the values we use in beta. It's the most common second setting arrangement that we have. This B variety here that we see has moved. Like you see, this is very important, and you should understand what the game is all about. You remember we had here, we had number 10 and number 12. You see them? Number 10 and 12, they sit on the first row. They took the whole row of 12 and they moved them differently from one arrangement to the other. Now this type 10 and 12, they sit on the top row in alpha, only on the 1 piastre stamp. You go to all the other values, you go to the 10 and 12 rows, and this is the place where the row sits. You see, it's a different place of the row. So let's take something else like 45 and 46, which is a different variety. The 45 and 46 are sitting here. The whole line was taken and put in a different position. And this is what the game is all about. Now the B variety, the famous B variety, was for position 224, sits here. This is not position 224. We use the number 224 to indicate the position of the stamp in the alpha arrangement. And the alpha arrangement, remember, this is the 1 piastre. So when we say on a B, on setting to the beta, we say 224, we refer to the position of the stamp in the alpha. And this 224 is a B variety. It sits on position 212. Now, not only that they had all these nice numbers, nice varieties that they had in alpha put into beta in different sequence. Of course, like in good stories, they have 2 new different stamps whatsoever. For instance, one is called beta 205, and beta 205 is this nice point you see above the Arabic S. Okay, this point is always on position 205 in beta. So when you collect a stamp, you look at the stamp, you find, let's say, variety 176. It can be on an alpha 176 if it's a 1 piastre. It can be on an alpha 176. It can be on a 1 piastre beta 176. Now, this is something very interesting. This is the 1 piastre sheet of beta arrangement, which is extremely rare because, as you remember, they used all the 1 piastre with an alpha arrangement. having this stamp in a beta arrangement is something unique. I've seen, this is the only one I've seen. Actually, the 1 piastre is also interesting, just for those who know this area, because in the first setting, it is very rare to find one piastre stamps. So let's go back to the basic. We have a second setting. We have a setting with a 1 piastre. It has different varieties. It has a BRO for 224. It's used only for 1 piastre. Then we go to the beta arrangement. They took all the lines. They changed the lines. All the varieties are sitting on a different position. And now the BRO, the famous second B, it's called B2, is on position 212, and we have new arrangement. Now they decided they needed more low-value stamps. They needed more low-value stamps, and they decided to create another with a second. Remember, we're always on now we're Jerusalem 1, setting 2, and they decided to make new arrangement, and they called it. Oh, sorry. Before this, they had another nice thing. I'm still sitting with a beta arrangement. They have something called the inverted overprint. The inverted overprint is only the 3 mil value, and I like this four stamps very much because it belonged to somebody named Darlow. And this Darlow was a major in the British Army, and basically this guy invented our collection. It's very rare block. I know 2 of these blocks to exist. Now, as I told you before, we had the 1 piastre on the alpha, we had all the values on the beta, and then they were missing some more low values stamps. So in order to have some more low value stamps, they issued another arrangement. We call it gamma, because the third one after alpha and beta comes gamma. And on the gamma one, they had only 2 values. We call it gamma 1. You see gamma 1 and gamma 2, they have gamma 1, and gamma 1 had only 2 mil value and 5 mil value, and they were perforated 14 only. Okay? We have 2 values of the gamma 1, and of course, as before, they changed the sequence. You see the 10 and 12 are on the same sequence as before. I'll just look here. Number 76 is on the second row, okay? Remember? So we go to number alpha, and alpha has number 76 here on this row. So the sequence of the rows changes, but we still keep the same rows, change from one place to the other. And of course, like any other good story, we have new, totally different varieties on these black dots. Okay, 142, 205, gamma 205, which is different than beta 205. It might be confusing, but we have this gamma arrangement, gamma 1. And on gamma 1, the famous beta, the famous B arrow would not be, you see 224? 224 would not be on position 212, like in the beta, would not be on the 224, like in the alpha. It would be on position 200, because it moved one row upwards, okay? Now, once they found the B arrow, they finally realized, after so many B arrows, they finally realized they have a problem with this B arrow. So they said, we'll take this B arrow away and we'll put something else from the first setting maybe. Let's put something else that will prevent this B arrow to show up. So they made a new arrangement, which basically has all these same numbers. But instead of this 224 B arrow, they put another stamp. And we're very happy with this because they corrected what they did before. So we have this B, we have this setting that's called gamma 2. I'll show you with gamma 1 something. This is how the gamma 1 looked like. For those of you who collect Palestine stamps, you would think that the 5 mil perforation 14 is by far the most common stamp. Okay, it's very easy. Every collection of Palestine has this 14. But after 20 years of collection, I can tell you that this gamma 1, the 5 mil type perforation 14 is extremely scarce from the gamma 1 arrangement. Since the arrangement is similar in the sequence to the gamma 2, you say, oh, it's the same one, so what's the big deal? So first of all, I wanted to show this gamma 1 sheet. It has this B arrow. Here's the B of the second B. It's at position 200. Then we have this 205. You remember we had the big dot above the S, okay? And now we have this small little dot here, you see? The small little dot. This is the gamma dot of 205. It's different from the beta one of 205. It's a different stem. And something very nice that I found on this, I found I have two findings on this type of sheet, the gamma 1 5 mil perforation 14. I found a new variety that never existed. I found it on position 169, the T and I are joined. And I found an only stem. I identified it as on position 169. And many years later, I found the whole sheet, and I verified that it exists on this same position. So this is the gamma 1 sheet. Now, since they didn't like this B arrow, they changed it and moved it to something called gamma 2. But anyway, there's another one with gamma 1. Sorry, gamma 1 also have a nice variety. It's called missing Hebrew. You see this missing Hebrew? It appears on the 2 mil. It appears as well on the 1 mil. And some of all the letters here are missing as well. It's not so important, but it's a nice variety of the gamma 1. So let's move to gamma 2. Gamma 2, you remember, this is the gamma 1. It's the same sequence as gamma 2. All these numbers are the same places. The only thing that changes this little guy, number 224, which is actually not number 224, it's number 200. And it changes from the B arrow. We don't want the B arrow anymore. Let's get rid of it. Let's put something nice in it. Okay. So I have here gamma 2, as far as I'm concerned, is by far the most interesting sheet that exists. For me, a non-Jerusalem 1 value. It is very interesting because, first of all, it has not all the values. It says in perforation 14 only the 5 mil, okay? And then in perforation 15, it has 1 and 3 mil full sheets. Full sheets mean it has the same sequence like the regular sequence. And then there was something very nice. They needed more stems. So they put part of sheets. They didn't put the whole sheets. And they used it for the 2 mil, 5, 4 mil, 5 cluster, 10 cluster, and 20 cluster perforation 15. And because this is a part of sheets, you can see many things like this nice thing is it has the gamma 2. You see the broken P here. It has the gamma 2 142. I show you here. It's on the. This is the gamma 2 142. See this variety here? It exists here, and this is the variety. But this variety that's supposed to be on 142, actually it's on the upper side of the pen. They switched one pen from the other. The way they switched, they never switched one pen of one overprint of the pen from the other on Jerusalem 1 setting 1. Never. It's always on the same pen. But when you go to Jerusalem 1 setting 2, you have even on beta, you have the lower pen on the upper pen, sometimes upper pen on the lower pen, and there are games, they were played, and you can find them and identify them by searching what variety do you have, what kind of overprint do I have, and on which typograph stamp they are sitting. Because if you know the typograph stamp, you remember from when we started, and you identify the typograph, you understand that this is on the wrong position. So you have overprint sitting on the wrong position, which is great. It's something to enjoy. Now this pair here, you see, it's a beautiful pair, because if you see here, there's something we call a plate variety. It's called spiderweb. Spiderweb is all this gibberish here. See, instead of having clean lines, they have these things here. This is spiderweb. Spiderweb sits in position 191. It will be type 11. But what happened here? They took part of sheets. They didn't took all the sheets. They took part of sheets. And instead of having here part type 11, they have type 8. They moved the overprint 3 lines to the right. So it's not only that you have a sequence. The sequence changes all the time, not because it can go to the upper pen, the lower pen, it can go to the right, it can go to the left. The overprint itself can be moved to the right. And this happens only on the 2 mil. The thing that the overprint will go to the right happened, as far as I know, only on the 2 mil perforation 15, gamma 2. So gamma 2 is extremely important and interesting variety. And what we have on the gamma 2 here, remember this B arrow that we took it out, we didn't want it, we don't like the B arrow, we put something else. So we're very nice people, they put something else. And unfortunately, with all the nice stories, they put again this terrible Z arrow. They put a Z arrow, but now, normally you would think they would take something they throw away from the first setting and would put a 0 in the setting. But no, they created a new 0. It's 0 that never existed. And it can be identified differently from the 0 from the first one setting. So this nice position here, this type, we call it 224, it's a position 200, was changed from a B on gamma 1 to Z on a gamma 2. These are extremely rare stems. Most of these stems exist only, there's only one example of them to know. Like we have one example on 20 piastre, one example on the 4 mil, one example on the 2 mil, etc., etc. And this is actually something I found. It's a nice story. I found the stamp, I found a 0. I was very happy I put it in the album. I think after 10 years, I decided to search for which position it was. And it didn't match any position I knew, nothing. So I counseled somebody, Mr. Kaufman from the Netherlands. I said, Mr. Kaufman, it looks like a Z2, but Z2 doesn't exist in the catalog. It's not there. I don't know how many of you can find something in their field of interest when you can find things that don't exist in the catalog. They don't exist. I found a few things that you can add to the catalog because you investigate these things. And there are so many varieties and so many options. You can find new things, and this is the joy of this collection. So I found this stamp. It's a unique stamp. It's a Z arrow, 5 piastre from the second setting, position 200, unique. This is also unique. So it's a 10 piastre from a 0 from a second setting, and I won't go after the details of how it can differ between the first setting and the second setting. But if you learn this subject, you can understand it differs. This is a very nice example of the setting, position 200. Actually, this stamp is very common. The 0, the 5 mil perforation 14 for position 200 is extremely common. It's found everywhere. But this example is unique because it has Hebrew on top. You see, this is the 0. It has a Hebrew on top. And as far as I know, it's the sequence of the writing. Now, this would be a nice way to end these things, but no. We have the second setting, we have the 12 types, we have the alpha on the 1 piastre, we have the beta on all 11 types. We have the gamma 1 on the type 2 mil and 4 mil and 5 mil perforation for 14 only. We have gamma 2 with all the different types I showed you, not on all varieties. And now they needed more new stems and they needed low values. So they put something we called a delta. Now I see I prepared something else before the delta, so I'll stop before coming this. I just jump. Again, I go to this 0. This is a gamma 1. A gamma 1 with the B arrow on position 200. Perforation 14, a very cheap stamp, but it's a nice block. And this is the famous B arrow. You can see it. It has a B, and the same thing should have been on position 200 here with a 0. You see, it has a small dot on the E. It's very hard to see it. Actually, it belonged to Zev Galibov, and when he told me he found it, he said he wanted to sell it for, I think, a very low price, and the guy didn't want to pay. And he said, "Why don't you want to pay me? It's a good stamp. It even has offset on back." And he showed him the offset and he said, "Wow, there's a 0. I'm not selling you this stamp." It's a unique stamp. And because this is a 2 mil value of this gamma 2, the whole overprint shifted to the right. So instead of having the 0 on position 200, we have the 0 on position 203. It's a marvelous example, really, something unique. And I was lucky enough to get it. So I told you, the game hasn't finished. The second setting, we have alpha for 1 piastre, beta, gamma 1, gamma 2, and now they need more values. They needed lower values, and they printed something in a different sequence of all these unique positions. And this time it was very different. The book says that 4 rows were completely new. I only found 2 rows that are completely new. And also each as I told you, each sheet has special stamps that never appear on any other sheets. Like this is the Palestine F. You see this F instead of E. It shows here on position 140. And this one is broken N. Broken N, see the brain is broken. It's not a very expensive one. It's position 175. This delta arrangement that the other one after the gamma, this arrangement was used for 2 values, the 3 mil and the 5 mil perforation 14 only. Okay, so we have the 3 mil, we have the 5 mil perforation 14, and the sequence is different, and the special stamps are different, and everybody's happy. But on the 5th row, see this 5th row? It's a very nice row. It has nothing to do with all these numbers. And somebody was nice enough, instead of putting all the regular rows from the other ones, from the alpha, from beta, from gamma 1, gamma 2, he put a new row, totally new row, and it's called the 5th row in the delta. Some people will say it's not very interesting, but this is very interesting. First of all, the first stamp of this row is a new type. We have 24 types of the first setting, 12 types of the second setting, and this type is type 13. For the second setting, it's unique to this special position. It exists nowhere but in this special position. Okay, in the 5th row of the delta, this is type 13. Now the second one, the second stamp of this row, and all the way up to the 10th stamp of this row, they actually took setting 1 stamps and put them inside. So we have a setting 1 type 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. This is the first setting overprint in the second setting sheets. Marvelous. Like we have this position here, position 57. It has an apostrophe. It's very hard to see, but it has a line here, a dot, which is apostrophe. And it took me a few years to try. This is number 13, a special type. This is number 2 to number 10 from the first setting, I understand. But what are these doing here? Where did they come from? It took me a few years to investigate, and I finally realized they took beta 205 and beta 206 and put them over here. It's a research I made for years, and this is the conclusion I got. Maybe I'm wrong, but this is what I found. So I summarize it all for you very easy. We have this first setting, 24 types of writing, with the withdrawn types 1 and 11, 13 and 23. We have the second setting with alpha arrangement, beta arrangement, gamma 1 arrangement, gamma 2 arrangement, delta arrangement, and all these beautiful, marvelous things to some. I just want you to understand the joy of it all. You get a stamp, and you don't know what you're buying. You get something, you see an overprint, and you start searching. Is it the first setting? Is it the second setting? Which position it comes from? And sometimes you can find findings you never even imagined. Like
Jerusalem.
Jerusalem 2. Now we'll go to Jerusalem 2. Sorry. Now, Jerusalem 1 is very easy to identify. It has this small Arabic writing. See, it's 8 millimeters. And since it is only 8 millimeters, again, the Arabs were not happy. Why is the Arabic writing so small and all the other letters so big? So to make them very happy, they made a larger print with 10 millimeters, and they call it Jerusalem 2. Now, if they have a very nice sequence of stamps in Jerusalem 1, the Jerusalem 2 is some kind of way less interesting because it has 240 positions, and they're all different from one another. Every position is different from another. I don't know how they found all this handwriting, but everything was different. And it wasn't printed on all values. It was printed on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mil, perforation 15. It was printed on 1, 2, and 5 piaster, perforation 15 as well. And they had also perforation 14, like some other values, I won't go over them. Okay, just wrote them. Some of them were perforation 14, some of them perforation 15. Now there are 240 values, all different. So what do you collect in Jerusalem 2? First of all, you collect the place where the overprint is missing. Like the Hebrew here is totally missing. It's a unique item. There's only one in the world. And here is the English is missing. It's one of two items in the world. Here you have Palestine. Oh, you see the B turned into O. So you collect this as well. What else can you collect? You have a double print. You see the print is double. Like the T, tough in Hebrew is double. The hey here is double. There's one value where the overprint is inverted. So you have here two languages only, in English and in Hebrew only, and it went down here like this. So this is the Jerusalem 2 collection. I went over it very fast because it's very less thing to collect there, but it is interesting. So how I try to make it simple for you. You have 8 millimeters in Jerusalem 1, and you have 10 millimeters in Jerusalem 2. There's a slight thing that's very interesting. It's a special production of Jerusalem 2 that's called the narrow setting. Why is it called the narrow setting? Because instead of having a 7 millimeters, the regular 7 millimeters between the Palestine in English and the Palestina I in Hebrew, they printed for the low values another printing that has only 6 millimeters difference between the Hebrew and the English. This setting is called the narrow setting. It was printed in 6 different types. You have the 6 types here. They can be different from one another. They were set regularly, like 1 to 6, 1 to 6, 1 to 6, and over the pen. Now, these are the 6 types. This is the 5 mil perforation for 14, and it's very it's very in blocks as well. And these are the types they use. They use a 1 mil perforation 14. This one has a B variety. They use a 5 mil perforation 14, and they use the 3 mil perforation 15 as well. This one is the R variety. And beside this, they have another one that was found by collectors later. This simple-looking stamp that everybody adores. Probably what everybody calls the holy grail of the collection. And I don't know why. I think it's a public relations stamp. It has a perforation for 15 on the 5 mil stamp, and it's called 44A, which is by far the most well-known stamp in the Palestine collection. I'll go on very quickly. This is an envelope. I said there's no postal history. I just put an envelope here to make you think there is some postal history in this. So this is the right weight for London, 1 piastre for London regular rate. Okay, after they had 240 types of Jerusalem 2, they decided it's not very clear, it's not very easy to see the writing. So they produced something they call the another edition called Jerusalem 3. Now, Jerusalem 3 is different from Jerusalem 2, the way that it has types, unlike Jerusalem 2 that doesn't have types. It has 240 stamps, all different. Jerusalem 3 has types. It was supposed to have 6 types because we have 12 stamps in a row. So 1 to 6, 1 to 6, but somehow the 3rd type and the 9th type were vanished. So we had the types 1, 2, and then 3 is randomly put in, and then you have 4, 5, 6. And this is the way it goes only also all through the sheet. Now you can see here the Jerusalem 2 versus Jerusalem 3. You can see the letters are very sharp and clear here on Jerusalem 3. Sometimes it's very hard to determine between Jerusalem 2 and 3. You need to really study it. But since it's much sharper and it's much easier it's a clean stamp, okay? And this is the 6 types or 5 types you have in Jerusalem 3. This is type 1 and 2, 4, 5, and 6. And this is randomly changed between the different position. What do you collect in Jerusalem 3? You have overprint varieties. Like here we have something that is an R variety. Instead of having a Palestine with an E, we have a Palestine with the R. It's in position 67. We have something here. This R shows at the end. Instead of the last E, it shows it shows as R instead of E. Here we have a broken S, which is a nice place. But all these are overprint varieties. So you collect you can collect types, you can collect varieties, that they have different ones. Here we have an offset on the stamp. It's a nice block of 6 on the 1 mil value. Here the overprint went down. You have this, in Berlitz, the Hebrew one, and this is, the Hebrew one is very vague because this Hebrew partially missing. I want one thing to indicate that in Jerusalem 2 and Jerusalem 3, they're not very desirable because they don't have as much interest and varieties as the first print of Jerusalem 1. But there are some stamps that are very, very expensive in blocks or as individuals in Jerusalem 2 and 3. This is the 1 mil in Jerusalem 2, the number 38, perforation 14. There's the 1 piastre, number 35, perforation 15, which are very, very expensive. But by far, the most expensive stamp we have is Jerusalem 3, and it's way more rare than 44A. This is the stamp. I unfortunately don't have it. It's number 59. It's 20 piastre stamp on perforation 14. And I don't think, I know there was a block of 4 which was divided, and I don't know of any other stamp. We have 4 or 5 or 6 examples of this stamp. Perforation 14, 20 piastre, mint. So we have Jerusalem 1 with all these varieties. We have Jerusalem 2. We have Jerusalem 3. Now, because of the mess that was done in Jerusalem, unfortunately, the printing was sent to London. Now, this is very unfortunate because the people in London did a very good job and there were hardly any varieties. And they were using the same stamp as the other stamps, but I show you, there was one change with the 1 piastre stamp. 1 piastre stamp was changed from this color to this color. I have this with a specimen, both stamps, and all the others, plate blocks are basically the same. The writing is different. It has a different width of the stamp. And look at the writing here. It's very, very clear, extremely clear. Hardly any arrows, hardly any varieties. Terrible for the collector. However, I'll show you. This is the Jerusalem 1. It has the 8. Look at the difference in the writing. The English is wider, and the difference between the Arabic and here it's 20 millimeters. The difference between Arabic and Hebrew here is 18.5 millimeters. But you can easily see the difference between Jerusalem 1 and London prints. Okay? It's very easy to find out the difference. Okay. This is a block. This is a block of types. You have 12 types here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and you have the other one here to 12. Each one is different. You have a broken shin, you have a broken lamed. I talk very quickly because I know it's a short lecture, but if I have 5 hours, I would be happy to give it. So what do you collect? I have some something for the people who like postal history. There's the earliest known. This is from November 14, 1921. And this is one of my findings. The book says October the 5th, 1921, and I found an example from October the 3rd, 1921, and I was extremely happy. I found it like 20 years ago, and I was very happy. Now, this is another thing you collect in the London 1 stamp. It's called a plate variety, a very famous one called the circle variety. This is the block of the 3 mil, and this is the variety, a stupid circle. Sorry for the word stupid, but this is a stupid circle here. It's called the circle variety, and this is a very nice block. And this stamp is unique. This is the only stamp known that has all 3 languages doubled. It's not a variety. This is a printing error. It's not a variety. And it has, there are 2 options. They have this variety is all 3 languages doubled. The only one I know in the world. And there's another one with only 2 languages doubled. But I had the chance to buy it one day in an auction. I said, I'm not missing it. As much as I have to pay, it's the only one in the world I'm buying. So after they had this London printing, they decided, and the London printing was given to somebody said, Somerset. So the Somerset people printed this overprint on the normal typograph stamps, and somehow they lost the contract. They lost the contract to Waterloo and Son, and they had to handle the examples of the overprint, the example of the plates to Waterloo and Sons, and they gave us some cancelled stamp. You see the stamp, it has cancelled on it. They gave this cancelled stamp to Waterloo and Son, and also these cancelled stamps are known 7 values, and they're quite rare to be honest. You see them once in a while in the collection. And then unfortunately, they moved to something we call the London 2 overprint, which was done with the Waterloo company. The Waterloo company did a terrible thing. They didn't use the typograph stamp we knew, and the company does all the way. They used different values. The added values, I'm not going to go into it. There is a value of 6, 7, 8, 13. We didn't have this value. They changed the color, like this one should have been green. It turned into yellow, and the plates are totally different. Actually, for me as a collector of overprints, I lose my temper and I don't collect them. They have different varieties on the plate, like this variety that has an F instead of that EEF. They have EFF, and they have a different kind of overprint, like this one has a Dalet instead of Hey. They have sometimes in certain rows, they have a taller stamp that have 18 teeth instead of 24 teeth. And this is a very rare stamp that has 24 or 25 on the 20 piastre value. This is a rare stamp that has 18 teeth as well. They have a double print that they have also on a. If you see that I'm rushing, first of all, I'm rushing because you all tell me there's no time. But besides rushing, it's because I don't like this London 2 overprint. It's done on a totally different plate, and this is not my cup of tea. Now they have this overprint here. They have another inverted overprint on the 1 mil that they don't have. They have a shifted perforation. They have Jubilee line on the stamp. And basically, if you want to go into London 2, it's a whole new world. But since Yoram said the time is over, I guess the time is over. So I conclude this lecture, and I would like to make it some kind of. Let's see if you got the idea. We have Jerusalem 1, Jerusalem 2, Jerusalem 3, all done in a Greek convent. We have London 2, London 1, all done in London. And the difference between Jerusalem 2, 1, and 3 is like this. Jerusalem 1 has very 8 millimeters stamp. So if you see 3 languages and the Arabic is short, it's a Jerusalem 1 overprint. If you see something where the Arabic is long, you have to look whether it's a very pointed and nice and clear letters or very, very blur and rough letters. If it's a rough letter, definitely Jerusalem 2. They're blur, they're pointed and nice, and Jerusalem 3. London 1, I won't say a word. You see, it looks so very much different from the other. The letters are stiff and right and large and clear fonts, unfortunately. And the London 2, you see the Hebrew that stands right and strong here, it's a very poor font. It looks like somebody done a very bad job. So if I had a few more hours, I would go very much into it, but I think this would summarize the main ideas of the overprint. And thank you very much. If you have any question, I'll be happy to help you. Anybody?
So Zvi, thank you very much for your presentation. I just mentioned a couple of comments before we throw everything open to questions. I mean, I think when you talked about the new discovery of the trial overprints, the large blocks, you know, we always think that every discovery has been made years ago and that there's very little new discoveries that actually happen. But of course, as you rightly said, these large blocks of the trial overprints only came to light very, very recently. So it shows the last word has not been written on these overprints. A couple of other small comments for you. The specimens on the London 1, what was nice to see was the Bechuanaland receiving specimen on the right-hand stamp. And then on your cancels for the transition of London 1 to London 2, generally those were, in terms of the British Post Office, they talk about color standards. And generally speaking, there were only about 6 examples that were overprinted, canceled in that way. So as you rightly said, the numbers are very, very small indeed. So just a few comments, a wonderful presentation.
I would like
excellent
to
explanation.
One thing about the council. I know 7, I think they have 7 examples of this stamp. I have them all, but I found 2 examples on the 3 and 4 mil that don't exist in the catalog. I don't believe them. They have a cancelled overprint on them. They have a British certificate, the British BPA They have a certificate. I don't believe the certificate. I bought them on the screen for me because I thought it should be somewhere around me, but either they're fake or they're real. I can't really tell. So basically, they have three seven cancelled stamps and two more that I have in my collection that I don't really believe. They also have specimen in the London one that they couldn't show because they're very extremely rare. I know of only one set to exist that I know
Right.
of.
Right. So do we have any questions or comments for Zvi from those of us who are here?
It's just mind-boggling. There's a lot, there's so much to learn, but I do like, how you put it out there.
Thank
And
you.
your drawings and so forth were very helpful.
Thank you very much. I hope something will be remembered because most people see these old prints and say Gewalt. It looks the same, and let's go on to something else. But it's really fascinating. Once you go into it, and you find stamps, you can't really tell the difference between, and you investigate them, and you ask friends, and you get to the conclusion sometimes after many days. What are they? Where are they from? Which variety appears in them? It's really fascinating. You should.
Well, your passion definitely came
Yes,
out
I
in
have,
your
I have a lot of
presentation.
passion for these stamps. I really like
Yes.
them.
Well, thank you for doing that, and your attention to detail is remarkable.
Thank you very much.
That's what I took away from this. I learned a lot about the stamps, and it's going to be a very useful lecture just to look at afterwards as a reference.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So do we have any other comments or thoughts?
Nobody.
So we
Nobody
have
start-
we have a
nobody will
silent
start-
period. We have a
Nobody will
silent-
start collecting. Either they all fell asleep, which is very likely.
No, I think I was watching. Everybody was wide awake, and
I hope so.
as Ed rightly said, I mean the way in which you illustrated the details very, very successfully with the slides.
And the slides are all your own slides. He did all the work. I'll be very proud to say it's my slide, but it's not true.
All right. Well, you both get credit for it. You each get credit for your own contributions. Barry, I believe you have a question or a comment.
Well, just in reference to reviewing this in the future, how do you gain access to it?
Okay, well, through the website, as Yoram mentioned at the beginning of I think you mentioned at the beginning, there's going to be each of the lectures from the whole academy will be converted into YouTube videos.
Excellent.
And then you will go to the Israel 75 Academy website. And through the website, you'll then be able to transfer across into the YouTube videos. So you'll be able to look at those. And the plan is that the website, and Yoram can correct me if I misspeak, the website, the plan is that it will be up at least for the next 3 years or so. So you'll have plenty of time to go to the website and then pick on the videos that you want to watch. And obviously you can watch them as many times as you want, but the access is done through the Academy website.
Thank you very much.
Okay, do we have
Thank
any
you
other
very much.
comments?
No comments.
Another question, will the exhibit stay up there as well for the
Yes.
3 years?
Yes, everything that's presently on the website and the 2 videos from next weekend, from next Sunday, will also be uploaded. And as Yoram said, just given the time to convert them from the Zoom recordings into the videos, usually it takes there'll be about a week's lag before the current videos are up. The ones from the first lectures are already up on the website.
Great, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
I'd like to say for a very difficult subject to do on a slide presentation, Zvi did a great job. You talk about minute little things, and he did a great job.
Ed, thank you very much, Ed. Thank you very much. I haven't seen you quite. Are you coming to Israel in the near future? I haven't seen you for many years.
Well, yeah, because of the pandemic, I haven't been, but hopefully in October. I'm planning on coming.
I
I'll
tell you
see
what,
you-
all excuses expired because the pandemic is over. And you're more than welcome. We'll
You're
be
right.
We'll be happy.
Can I thank you for an amazing presentation? Thank you so
Thank you
much.
very much. Thank you, really. I was hesitating what should be put into the presentation. Yoram always held me because if I could put everything I wanted, it would take hours. He said, no, you have to show the basics and what's the difference between the other stems. So it is amazing for me that this subject consists only of 2 years of philately. Only 2 years of stems. And it has so much in it. And after 25 years, you find new findings that you couldn't find in the past. And you realize positions that you didn't realize before. And then it's something very unique to philately, as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you so much. Wow.
Thank you.
Yoram, if I could just ask if you could stop the screen sharing at your end, and I'll switch to the screen sharing here. Just as a reminder, next Sunday, we will have 2 further talks. And just before we move to that slide, again, I just want to thank our 3 sponsors. This time I'll make it a little briefer. I usually tend to say too much, but I'd just like to thank, again, Dieter Mikkelsen at Heinrich Köhler, Ed Rosen at House of Zion, and Arthur Morowitz of Champion Stamp Company for their support and making the Academy possible. And then the details for our next 2 talks, which will be on Sunday next week, Sunday, the 30th of April, again at the same time, noon Eastern. We'll have Yaakov Zohor talking about rare and unusual taxed items from the 48-49 period. And then our final speaker will be Ed Croft on a primer of understanding Israel postal rates from 48 to 53. So not only did the Academy begin with Ed, but it will also end with Ed. And before we close today, I'd again like to thank Yoram for everything that he's done to make the Academy possible, and also for working to get the recordings of the different talks up onto the website. This is going to be a big resource for people moving forward, and I think we're going to find a lot of people will come to look at those talks again at their leisure. And again, we also obviously should thank both the Israel Philatelic Federation and Eli Weber and Igal Nathaniel, and also the SIP. Both of these organizations were very supportive to the idea of the Academy, and we very much appreciate their support in making this happen. So I hope you all have a good week, and hopefully we'll see you all again next Sunday at noon Eastern time.